Hi everyone, my name is Labunu Daisy. I am a lawyer by profession, and today I'm here to discuss a very important and very sensitive topic. Today we're going to discuss about adoption. And in this video, first of all, we're going to define what adoption is. You're going to know who can adopt. You're going to know the conditions and the restrictions that are there in order for someone to adopt. Then we are going to also talk about the procedure. What court can you go to in case you need to adopt? First of all, we need to know who a child is. A child can be defined as a person who is below 18 years of age. Now, previously, before the amendment of the recent Children's Act, it was only a child who is a Ugandan citizen who could be adopted. Therefore, non-citizens could not be adopted. Let's say you're a child, but let's say you're Kenyan. You could not be adopted. Now, there are certain prerequisites and conditions that need to be followed in order for you to be able to adopt a child in Uganda. Firstly, let's say you are a sole applicant or you're jointly adopting a child with your spouse. When you are a sole applicant, you can adopt a child. However, there is an exception. Let's say you're a man and you want to adopt a female child. That is not allowed. Or let's say you're a woman and you want to adopt a male child. That cannot be allowed because there were instances where they found that people who actually adopted, let's say a man who adopted a child of the opposite sex, could actually end up using the child. So that is not allowed. However, in exceptional and special circumstances, that can be accepted by court. A good example is in the case of Rika Gulu, George, Rebecca, and others. In this case, the applicant was actually the child's uncle, and the child in this particular case was a girl. And the court stated that this was intended to reduce cases of, let's say, seducing or marrying the child. But in this particular case, the man was the child's uncle and he had the kid's best interest at heart. One thing I want you to remember is that when we are dealing with children, the best interest of a child comes first. So everything that is not in the best interest of a child, court cannot grant you an order for adoption. Now, let's go ahead and look at the conditions and the restrictions that are put in place when granting adoption. Now, the first condition we have age. It's clearly stated in the Children's Act. The applicant has to be 25 years of age and 21 years older than the child. They apply for adoption either alone, solely, or let's say a spouse jointly. When you're applying jointly with your spouse, you actually need the consent of the other spouse. Both parties have to consent. If, let's say, the applicant is not a Ugandan, the person must have stayed in Uganda for a period of 1 year. Previously, it was 3 good years, but that was changed to 1 year. Then, the next requirement is the applicant must have fostered the child for a period of 1 year. This is under the supervision of a probation and social welfare officer who goes to your home and takes regular visits to your home and checks on you and the child. How are you bonding? What is your relationship like with the child? They will ask you different questions concerning the child, and they see how the two of you are actually connecting, and they see if you are suitable to actually adopt that child. Now we are going to talk about the issue of consent. This is very important. If you're actually to adopt a child in Uganda, you need the consent of the parent, their biological parent. However, in certain circumstances, if let's say you're incapable of finding the child's parent, the court can dispense away with that condition. Let's say the parent of the child has given consent for the adoptive parent to go ahead and adopt their child. He cannot retract that consent without leave of court. I hope that is clear. Now I'm going to look at inter-country adoption. You know, in the past, it was actually not very strict or stringent. Previously, a person could actually come to Uganda and then get legal guardianship over the child, and then would go back to their home country and finish the adoption process. However, Parliament saw that there were actually gaps in that law. There were certain gaps that were missing. That's why in the current amendment of the Children's Act, the legal guardianship is only restricted to Ugandan citizens. There was a time 600 children were to be adopted, and then when they followed it up, they actually found it was only 227 of them that actually finished the adoption process. So now there was a gap. Where did the 400 go? So there are also, Parliament looked at instances where, let's say, of late there are rising cases of child trafficking, children taken for domestic labor. So that is why inter-country adoption, you follow very strict rules, and then it is a bit tight compared to other procedures. When you're looking at inter-country adoption, there are certain things that you have to fulfill. First of all, you have to have fostered the child in Uganda for a period of 1 year. Previously, it was of course 36 months. Secondly, you have to have no criminal record. Therefore, you have to have a letter of good conduct from Interpol to see that you're actually not a criminal and you have the child's best interest at heart. You have to get the child's medical documents. Let's say the child is 3 years and the child probably has pneumonia. You need to check and see that if the child is actually sick, you as an adoptive parent, you'll be able to actually take care of that child from the time they grant you that order. Also need a recommendation from a probation and social welfare officer. This report will actually state that you as a parent, you are suitable and capable of taking care of this child. Remember previously I had said the probation and social welfare officer will take regular visits while during that period of fostering the child. By the way, I forgot to mention, I said you have to have fostered the child for 1 year. Now there are certain instances where actually court can grant you the adoption order even without completing the period of 1 year. I hope I'm clear. And then the next requirement is your bank statements, and this will clearly show that you are financially stable as a person and you can clearly take care of the needs of this child. They will also need a marriage certificate. Let's say you are a couple and you want to adopt a child. You have to satisfy court that your country of origin will respect and recognize the adoption order once granted. I hope I'm clear with that. Now let's say you fulfilled all the conditions and the prerequisites needed for you to be able to adopt, and you're asking yourself, which court can I actually go to? Let's say I want to adopt this child now. In case you are a citizen of Uganda, you can go to the magistrate's court within the jurisdiction where you or the child reside. So if let's say you and the child are both Ugandan citizens, you can apply to the magistrate's court. For non-citizens, it's a bit different. You have to apply to the High Court for you to be granted an adoption order. Now I'm going to talk about the procedure steps you can follow. The first thing you have to do is, of course, go to, let's say, a baby's home or an orphanage, or you can contact an adoption agency and they connect you to a child. And if, of course, you find that child that you desire deeply to parent, then you have to now, they'll attach you to, as I said previously, to a probation and social welfare officer who will keep giving you regular visits to see if you and the child are bonding. Then you will appear before a panel that will ask you questions. They'll inquire more about you and your capability as a person to take care of this child. Remember, everything when we're dealing with children, we look at the best interests of a child. If you are granted this adoption order, are you able to take care of this child and love them and give them the support they desire, like as though this child was your biological child? As I said, let's say you're a citizen of Uganda and you want to go to court so that you are granted this adoption order. What documents can you use? The first document you need is a petition. You need an adoption petition. You will have to go to a law firm of your choice and contact a lawyer who will do that on your behalf. Then the next thing you'll have to do is you, the child, and the guardian of the child will have to appear in court. Then there are instances where also the probation and social welfare officer and also the local lead where the child resides has to also appear in court. Then let's say a child is an orphan. In such cases, they will also require a social worker from that orphanage to appear in court. Now let's say you have been successfully given that adoption order. You will actually have to go and register that order with the Registrar General. You will also have to register that same order with the probation office, and also you have to register it with the National Council for Children. Children are very sensitive persons, and children need love. If we look at how many children are suffering or are in orphanages or are abandoned, they don't have homes, there are very many children out there who actually lack a home. Children don't belong to institutional homes or orphanages. They actually need families that actually will give them the care and the support that will help them become better citizens and better people in future. Because when we look at a child who has grown up in an orphanage setting, that child will have, of course, in that orphanage, they'll give the child health care. The child will have a roof over its head. They'll give the child food. However, that child will lack parental care. The love that can only be given through a parent. And therefore it's very good if we actually give children the ability to grow up and have normal lives and have an identity. You grow up and you know that, yes, this is my mother, this is my father. It's very important for a child to grow up in a normal family setting. Thank you very much, and I hope this video helps anyone out there intending to adopt. And I pray that you actually find that child you've been looking for, and you give the child the love and support that the child desires, and the child will grow up into the most amazing being that you will ever see. Thank you very much.